So, good afternoon. Welcome to our first orcharhino webinar in 2020 and our first orcharhino webinar in English at all. My name is Francisco Newell. I'm an IT consultant at DATACENTER. In normal work, I work with orcharhino and with Puppet. Today, I will present you our webinar. On my side, there's my colleague Jan Bundesmann in the chat, who will answer to your questions if you have any. So this webinar is made in two parts. First, I will give it a short presentation, tell about something about us, and then we'll move to the live demonstration of orcharhino. So first of all, I want to tell something about us, about DATACENTER. So what do we do at DATACENTER? Our main goal is to make life easier in computer data centers. So basically, this means automation. A central tool of that is orcharhino, but of course we do more than that. For example, we assist companies in building container infrastructures. For that, we use, for example, Red Hat OpenShift, Docker, or the SUSE Container as a Service platform. We consult companies how to use configuration management tools. The supported tools of that are Puppet, Ansible, and SourceStack. We assist companies general in lifecycle management of a service in their data centers. We offer trainings. So we offer trainings for orcharhino, for Puppet, for Ansible, for Docker or container as a general, and also for Kubernetes. We have a consulting department. This means that we assist companies figuring out which sort of automation is the most convenient for them and help them implementing it. Also, we offer operational support if it is requested. We have an engineering department which basically develops orcharhino. That means it develops new versions, bug fixes, plugins, quality assurance, and so on. As an enterprise solution, of course, we also offer support. So this means if the customer has a problem with orcharhino, he can turn to our support. We then have a look at it, and then we fix it for the customer. So now the first question at all is, why do we need to automate it all? So in business, there is a demand for innovation. Innovation means we need to discover new technologies, develop them, learn them, figuring out where we can implement them. On the other side, in the data center, the number of servers increase, while the number of administrators in general do not. So this means for the average administrator, there is an increasing amount of servers which have to be administrated, while an increasing amount of innovation has to be performed. So this only can be done if the tasks in the data center are automated to a reasonable amount. So what means automation? To a big part, it also means standardization. So if you want to deploy a server, this means you already know in advance how much resources you need. For example, if you have a server with very few resource demands, low RAM, very small hard disk, only low computational power, you can build a template of the size XS, just like a t-shirt size, pick this one, and then deploy a server with just 3 mouse clicks. On the other side, if you need a very powerful machine with a big hard disk, a lot of memory, and a high computational power, you can just create a template of the size XL. You pick this one, you deploy it with 3 mouse clicks, just a server of the size, and you let it go. So far, so good. Later, I will demonstrate how it works in practice with templates. Now, first, an overview of all what we offer. As I already said, we offer consulting, engineering, support, and trainings. We support all main enterprise Linux distributions. We offer configuration management, and we support several hypervisors for virtual machines and for cloud deployment. So the idea of orcharhino is to map the whole life cycle of a server. So this starts with host deployment. We just deploy the host and it runs. Then we want to do lifecycle and patch management. This means that we want to know what package versions are installed in our machine. We want to be able to install new versions, to remove packages if necessary. We want to know what patches are available for all machines in general and which ones are open and need to be applied to close security issues. Then also we have configuration management. This means when our server is deployed, we want to configure all the software to a reasonable amount so that in the ideal case, which should be the host is fully operational when it has been deployed. And then afterwards, when it's no longer needed, we want to be able to delete the host just with one mouse click. So with Orcharhino, we can deploy on several platforms. For example, on bare metal, which is not that requested anymore, but it's still there, so we can easily deploy on bare metal. The standard case at the moment is deployment on virtual machines, where we support different hypervisors, for example, VMware, Overt, KVM, but also Proxmox. But we are also able to deploy servers into the cloud. So in the standard scenario, Orcharhino serves both as DHCP and DNS, but this is not absolutely necessary. So we can tell Orcharhino to use an external DHCP and just take releases from there. But this is also not necessary. So if there is no DHCP available and should not be available, we can also tell Orcharhino to work with static IPs. The same as with DNS, we can use as well an external DNS to administrate our nodes. Or if there should be no DNS, we can also work directly with IPs. So now we get to a patch management. We want to be able to manage all package versions and updates for all our servers. We do that by using Orcharhino as a mirror for the repositories for all our servers. So we can create so-called products. In there, we put repositories, we put the upstream URL, and we can synchronize everything down to Orcharhino so that it's there for all our hosts, so they can use Orcharhino as their repository. In addition to that, we can create frozen package states, so-called content views. So if I take a content view today and I publish a version, I have a frozen status of today. I deploy a host today with the current status. Now, if I need to deploy the same host in a week from now, in a month or half a year, with exactly the same package version, I can now take this frozen state, this content view, apply that to the server, and I can reproduce the same server at any time, also with recent package versions. In addition, we get errata information, so we can patch everything, we can figure out what patches are available and need to be applied. For those of you who are not familiar with the concept of erratum, it basically is something like a package insert from Madsen. So if there is a security issue, a bug fix or enhancement for a package, the erratum tells you which package is the one which is affected. It tells you which version is affected and tells you to which version I need to upgrade my package to close the issue. As I said, we support all main enterprise Linux distributions. So it starts with Red Hat, CentOS as a Red Hat derivative, but we also support all the other derivatives of Red Hat, like Oracle, or for example, Cloud Linux. We support SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, but beside that, we also support Debian and Ubuntu. And beyond that, we also support deployment and configuration management of Windows servers, but no package management. This is unfortunately possible, and probably for a long time at least it will not be. So now we get to our lifecycle management. What do we mean by lifecycle management? So companies normally have different environments. The productive servers are the production environment. Then many companies also have a test and development environment. So the productive one has to be the most stable. So probably the package versions there will be the oldest one compared to the upstream version. In the development environment, the packages are developed, so they are the youngest. So the testing then is the intermediate one, which is younger than the production one, but it's older than the development one. So if now developers are developing the packages and they say we are done, they are fine, they can be tested. They can take the complete environment, which basically will be a version of the content view. They click on promote, and then the complete content view, complete environment will be promoted to test. And then every test server, which is connected to the testing environment, will receive the former development environment. This way, we avoid any problems or dependencies or other difficulties, and there is nothing you can do wrong by clicking wrongly. The same thing is When you are done by testing and you want to provide your packages to a productive environment, you just promote them, and then everything as a whole will be shifted to production. Further than that, of course, if there is now an erratum open for a server, and the fix is not part of your environment yet, normally one might think you need to prematurely promote your environment to make the fixes available. This is not necessary. You can just click on apply erratum. Then only the necessary packages and dependencies will be pushed into your environment, and the rest will stay like just like it is. In this way, you stay rocket solid with all your dependencies, and you just include the packages which are needed to close your security issue. Now I will tell you something about the configuration management. So as I said, we support 3 tools. These are Puppet, Ansible, and SaltStack. These 3 tools follow slightly different philosophies. Puppet is a server client system. So this means you have a Puppet server where the configuration for all your nodes is stored. On the nodes, there is a Puppet agent running, which regularly asks about the configuration which is required on the Puppet master. Regularly means, in general, every half hour. If the configuration on the master and the node match, Puppet is happy and nothing happens. Everything stays like it is. If there is a difference, the configuration will be corrected so that the configuration on the node will match the one on the master. In the standard scenario, the Orcharhino plays the role of the Puppet master, but this is not absolutely necessary. You can use an external Puppet master and, for example, tell him to send all the Puppet facts and also Puppet reports to Orcharhino and still keep a separate master. Ansible is slightly different. Ansible works over SSH and follows a fire and forget principle. In this case, the configuration is not pulled from the master, but it's pushed on the nodes. SaltStack is an intermediate thing of both, or a hybrid. You can run SaltStack as a client server system, running the Salt master on Orcharhino and running a Salt minion on your nodes, which regularly contact the master. Or you can also use SaltStack like Ansible and just pushing your configuration via SSH. So this represents the configuration of the application as a code. We have a centralized management because everything can be done straightly from Orcharhino and its surface. And we obtain automatic status reports from all our tools, Puppet, Ansible, and SaltStack. Now I want to lose a few words about the open source origin of Orcharhino. So Orcharhino consists of several open source projects, as I said. The main parts are, at first, the foreman, which configures represents a part for configuration management and provisioning. And with Cartello, we do a repository and subscription management. So the sub-projects for that are Pulp, which is used to synchronize all the packages so that they are available on Orcharhino. And Candlepin, which is used to subscribe all the packages, all the repositories, so that we can tell all the connected nodes which repositories to use. But there are much more community projects that are supported and can be installed, and which are delivered by us on request. So what do we offer from the ATIX? So for customers who order Orcharhino, we come and we install Orcharhino. We apply everything, every plugins which are requested. We develop improvements, and we also do quality assurance. This means we test all the versions that we run rock stable before we ship them. As said, we offer support for our customers in case that there's some trouble showing up. We deliver Orcharhino with the documentation matching to the version which is delivered. For people who are interested but do not have the Orcharhino yet, we also have an upstream link, an online link, where you can have a look to see how everything works. We also develop enterprise features, for example, the snapshot management for Orcharhinos which deploy on VMware. You can use this plugin to create snapshots for your servers directly from Orcharhino, roll back when necessary, and when no longer needed, to just delete the snapshots. We created the Debian support. So originally, the foreman was only running on Red Hat systems. So this means RHEL and CentOS. We also included now Debian and SUSE so that you can register them just like the Red Hat systems before. We also created a SUSE integration, so if you have a SUSE account, you can just put your credentials in, then you can see which products are available for you and synchronize them to Orcharhino and use Orcharhino as a mirror for your SUSE subscriptions. So to the concept of errata, as I said, originally only from the Red Hat world and only for enterprise versions. So this means originally it was only there for RHEL and for SLAS. We also offer errata for CentOS for our customers. We created an errata parser for Debian and Ubuntu because originally for Debian and Ubuntu errata did not exist. So we parse the update repositories, and therefore we are able to figure out what the CVEs are and are able to provide errata for them as well. So at this point, I arrived at the end of the first part of the presentation. Here you can see the link to the online documentation for Orcharhino. So if you have questions at this point, feel free to ask. We will turn to that then. Otherwise, I would continue with the live demonstration. So until now, there seem to be no questions, so I will move to the demonstration. So when we log in now, the first what we see is the list of all hosts which are connected to Orcharhino. You can see now we have many operating systems that are supported. Here we have CentOS 6, 7, 8. We have Debian 9 and 10. We have Oracle 7 and 8. We also are able to deploy. We have also an Proxmox connected to our Orcharhino. We have RHEL. We have /12 SP5, /15 SP1. We have Ubuntu 16 and 18. And we have Windows servers connected as well. At the beginning, I want to demonstrate how easy it is to deploy a host. So let's just create a host. So you just click the button Create Host. Then you get this form here to fill out. So we will just call this one Webinar Ubu. So let's deploy an Ubuntu host. You choose your host group, so that's in this case Ubuntu 18 what we are going to deploy. Now everything is filled out automatically. I will explain in a few minutes how this everything works. I just wanted now to demonstrate how easy it is to deploy. Now I click on Submit. Now we see the host is going to run, and now the host is starting. So we wait a few minutes and the host will be online. In the meanwhile, I will show you in general all the features and the overview of Orcharhino. So if I click here on the Orcharhino button here, we end up at the dashboard. So we have an overview of our features, of status reports and everything. So here we can see, for example, the host subscription status. We can see the recently published content views, the latest errata, which became available on Orcharhino. We have compliance breakdown reports. We see the latest reports, and so on, latest warnings, and much more. Here at this place, you can see now the names ATIX and Demo. So in this case, you have the organization. So if you have several sub-companies, you can create just different organizations. If you just want to have the part of your company access to certain servers, which are assigned to this one. The same thing is here. Here, if your location, for example, if you have several data centers connected to Orcharhino, you can manage them like that and just assign every data center to a separate location. Now, if we go to the monitor button, we see here the dashboard. So the dashboard is what I showed before, which you get all here. You can see all the facts for all hosts which are connected to Orcharhino. You can see statistics, trends, audits, jobs. You can see the reports, a report overview for all your hosts. Here at the task, you can see all the running tasks and finished tasks, and in this way you can also debug problems when you see that one task has failed. Now we get to the content. The content is a part which comes from Cartello, where we store all the mirroring, all the assignments, all the subscriptions. In subscriptions, you can see all the subscriptions which have been assigned in Orcharhino. Here at SUSE subscription, this is the place where I said you can add your SUSE account and put your credentials and then just synchronize. Now, if you go here to select products, you can see all the products which are available for your subscription. You can just click one, then you go to submit on the bottom, and then automatically this product will be created, and all you have to do then is to synchronize it. The same thing is with Red Hat repositories, where you can just place a manifest and assign your Red Hat subscriptions. Now we look at the products. The product is where we put all our repositories. Now we can have look at all what we have. So we get the products for all different operating systems. Normally you split them among several software. So you have the basic operating system, for example, here, ZOS 6, 7, 8, Debian. Now we have also Ubuntu 16, Ubuntu 18. We have separate products, of course, also for SaltStack, for Puppet, and so on. So let's have a look at one of our products. So let's look at Ubuntu 18.04. So we see we have here now several products. So for example, we have Bionic main and restricted. If we look here, you see we have the name, we have the label name. Here we put in the upstream URL, we put the release name, we put the component, the architecture. We set mirror and sync, which means every time when there's a new package upstream, it will be synchronized, and every time one package vanishes upstream, it will also be deleted, with exception for the ones which are already frozen in the content view, because of course the content view shows you the status of the moment it has been frozen. So to synchronize, you just go here to select action, and then you can click on sync now, and then everything will be synced. So you see here for Ubuntu 18, Bionic main restricted, we have 6,441 packages synchronized. Of course, you want to have an automation for that, so you can assign sync plans. I will come to that very briefly. So with sync plans, you can assign them that your repositories are synced every night or every week. So you can define a certain plan so that regularly your repositories are updated and synchronized. In content credentials, then you can place SSL certificates and DPG keys, which are required for, if they are required for certain products and repositories. Here you have your sync plans. So we have here several sync plans overnight, so that not all the products do synchronize at the same time. Because the load, then of course the Corrino gets very, very busy and might react quite slowly. And so you see we have now here 6 sync plans which run every night, and we have assigned several different products to every sync plan. At the sync status, you can see what the status is, if it was successful or if problems have been shown there. So if I click here, it will take a few seconds because there are many, many products. And then it will tell you what's the status of the last sync. Here at Lifecycle, we define our Lifecycle environment paths. So you see in our Corrino, we have 3 environments. We have development, testing, and production. And if you want to create a new path, you can just click here and create a path. You can create several paths in parallel, or you can just create a new environment in one path by clicking here, Add New Environment. So now we come to our content views. So there are 2 subtypes of content views. There are the normal, the generic content views. So if you want to create a joint content view, just click on Create Content View, and then you can assign certain products. So again, now we can have a look at our Ubuntu content view. And we see now in our Ubuntu content view, there's only one product assigned. That's the product Ubuntu 18.04. Let's wait a few seconds until the website has loaded everything. So you see, we have now, here you can see we have several versions. So every time we want to deploy a new version, because we want to provide new content, you can just publish a new version, and then a new version is provided. The versions are assigned to environments. So you see here we have only the library environment, because we do not assign the classic content views, but we create so-called composite content views, which themselves consist of several content views. And those ones we assign to different environments, because they are the ones which are subscribed to our nodes. So as Ubuntu is a Debian-based distribution, our repositories are not YAML content, but apt repositories. So we have here list remove, so you can see these are the products which are assigned to our Ubuntu 18.04 content view. Now we can also have a look to the composite content view, as I already said. So we get back to content views. We waited a few seconds until the view has been updated. Now we go to composite Ubuntu 18.04. So the same thing here, you can see now all the versions which have been published. Here you will see that the versions are assigned to different lifecycle environments. So you can basically have one content view which works as a mirror for all the three environments, and only the different versions are assigned to different lifecycles. So you see, for productive servers, they get the content view version of Ubuntu 18.04 number 11. The testing servers get the version 13, and development servers are assigned the version number 14. So for example, if we want now to promote the development content view to testing, we just go here, we click on promote, and then we click on testing, and we can just click on promote version. Then we have to wait a few minutes, and then all the packages which were assigned to development will be available for our testing servers. Here we can see on content view the content views which are assigned to this composite content view. So we see now we have here a salt stick for Ubuntu, we have the Ubuntu operating system itself, we have the Ubuntu client which is needed to subscribe Ubuntu to orcharhino so that it can upload its package status and also receive errata, and we have Puppet for Ubuntu. So now we continue with our content here. So now we have the activation keys. The activation keys are needed for subscribing. So when we subscribe a host, we have to assign all the repositories. This is done by activation keys. So now we look, for example, again at our Ubuntu product. So we have now Bionic Test. So this is the activation key for our Ubuntu 18 test servers. We see it gets its content from the testing environment and from the content view composite Ubuntu. And here we can add the subscriptions which are assigned to a host which is connected. And we see again here all the products which have been assigned. So now here we have an overview about all the DAT packages which have been synchronized and available on orcharhino for all distributions. We have all the files which are uploaded with packages. So packages in this case means all the RPM packages. Here we have a list of all errata which are available on orcharhino in general. No matter if there are hosts which need them, the errata are available. We have module streams for CentOS and RHEL 8, and we have Puppet modules in here. Now if we get to hosts, now we have a list of all hosts. That's the first screen I showed you after logging into orcharhino. We have here now the create host button. That's the same thing like before. If we want to deploy a host, we have content host, which is the same thing like the host list, just from the Cartello side. Now we have an overview of all the architectures which are available on orcharhino. We have hardware models. Here we have the installation media. Let's have a short look. These are the media from which orcharhino is deploying hosts. So we can use local mirrors, which are created on orcharhino, but we can also deploy from upstream or for sync content. So you see we have everything here for CentOS, for Debian, for Oracle, for RHEL, for SLES, for Ubuntu, and also for Windows. So here we have the operating system which has been created on orcharhino from which we can deploy. So we see again all the same list we saw before from our host list. So this is the list at the moment which has been created on our demo orcharhino. So we can also now have a list of partition tables which are assigned to a host when it has been deployed. We have provisioning templates. Provisioning templates are needed during deployment. Basically, these are the commands which have been executed on your host when it gets deployed. We have job templates, so you can create certain tasks and jobs. and write them down and just send them to your host via remote execution. In this way, you can create a job template, as it said, and a basic one, and just assign it to several hosts, for instance. We also have compliance reports from SCAP policies. Here you can assign your policies, you have your SCAP contents, and here you can see all your SCAP reports you got. So now, if you go now to configure, the first item here is host groups. So this is what I promised you that I would explain, because the host group is the template for your host when you deploy it. So now, as we deployed as an Ubuntu 18 server, we will have a look inside what is being filled out. So like before, you saw when I picked this host group, everything was filled out before. So basically, here you have your name of your host group. You set the lifecycle environment where your host is to be deployed. You set the content view from which it gets its content, the content source, which is the orcharhino in general. The Puppet environment is set. You set the system where it's deployed from. So we have here the vCenter in our case from VMware, or Proxmox can be chosen in our case. But as I said, we support, of course, also other hypervisors. The compute profile is the t-shirt size I mentioned. In the compute profile, I will show you afterwards in more detail how it works. You define a template with a certain amount of memory, hard disk space, and computational power. Here you set your Puppet master. You set whether your Puppet CA sends. You have your OpenSCAP proxy. You set your sort environment and also your sort master. So here now you can already assign salt states, which are going to be applied on all nodes which are part of this host group. The same thing is with Ansible roles. So you put in here your Ansible role. And the special case in here is now, if when a host is deployed, it waits in general a certain time. You can set it with something between 5 and 10 minutes. So you can use Ansible to configure your host, because then after 5 to 10 minutes, this Ansible role is run. So you can use Ansible to configure the nodes which we are using. So you can choose basically if you want to use Puppet, Ansible, or SaltStack. You can use anything you want, only one of them. So you can use several of them in parallel, but you can use also none of them if you don't wish to use config management tools in orcharhino. The same thing here is a Puppet class, so you can assign Puppet classes which are run on your nodes, and here you can already assign them automatically, so every node which is deployed with these Puppet classes, so this Puppet class are rolled out and configured. Here you set the network settings for your node, so you set the domain, you set the subnet where the host is going to be deployed. In the operating system, you define the architecture, you define the operating system, so that's the operating system I showed you before. You can select from where you deploy. Special case with Red Hat systems like RHEL and CentOS, you can use the mirrored content as an installation medium to sync content. At the moment, this is not possible for Ubuntu and for SLAS yet, but maybe in future, when Part 3 is going to be implemented and as a standard, this will be possible. Here you set the medium from which you install. You assign the partition table for your node, and you assign the APX e-loader. You can assign a standard root password for all the nodes which are deployed in this host group. So this makes it easier if you use a standard password for all your nodes. If you don't want to do that, or you want to have a special password for a single node, when deploying that, all the settings I showed you can be overwritten when deploying. Here you have your global parameters defined and all the parameters which have been assigned. Here you can assign parameters which are specific to your host group. When deploying a node, you can see all these parameters, but also the global parameters which can be assigned, which I will show you in a few seconds. But when deploying a host, you can also define specific parameters which are only relevant for this host. You can assign parameters in several places. As I told you now, you can set them globally, you can set them in the host group, you can set them for a single host, but for example, you can also define them just for a single operating system. Now here you can assign a host to a standard location, a standard organization. And finally, you assign the activation key, which is used when the host subscribes to Orcharhino. So we were now at our host groups. So you can now here define global parameters, which are used for every host when it's deployed, no matter what. You can now also put your salt states here. So these are the salt states which are available for our demo Orcharhino. Of course, when you use salt state yourself, you can put your own content, and you can just update your status by importing them. The same thing is with your Puppet classes. You have a Puppet environment which is defined where you put your Puppet classes. You can define smart variables. The same thing is with Ansible roles. Here you have your Ansible roles, which are defined in Orcharhino. You can also define Ansible variables, which are then assigned to your nodes. In infrastructure, you see the smart proxies, which are available. In this case, we have Orcharhino, which is a smart proxy in its own network. If you want to administrate different networks where the Orcharhino cannot run directly itself, you can create a so-called smart proxy, an Orcharhino proxy. In this case, we have this proxy in a different network, which is in this case, the proxy is administrating the network for Orcharhino and just putting everything through our reports to Orcharhino directly. In compute resources, we put all our data centers. In this case, we have our vCenter, our VMware, our Proxmox. Now, the compute profiles is, as I told you, this is a t-shirt size I mentioned. So now, if we look, for example, we have look at our small t-shirt size. We look inside here. We can see nodes which are assigned to be small get 1 CPU. They get 1 gigabyte memory, and they get a hard disk space of 20 gigabytes. You can define as many compute profiles as you like, and you can define them as you like. So at subnets, you can see the subnets which are administrated. As I said, we have 2 subnets in here. This one is administrated by Orcharhino directly. This one is administered by our proxy. Here you can set HTTP proxies, which are to be used when synchronizing and administer. You can set and define your locations, your organizations. You can also include an LDAP authentication, but you can also create local users. If you have your users in there, you can create user groups and assign several roles to these groups. So when someone logs in from an LDAP authentication, depending on the department he or she is, he gets certain roles and can just use one part of the Orcharhino and not, for example, delete anything he wants. So we have also the bookmarks in here. We have remote execution features. In settings, we get the global settings, which are for Orcharhino. Here we have the documentation of our Orcharhino version as it's delivered, shipped, and about. We can see all the status of our backends and everything. So we see we have all the backends. So these are the available providers. So we have the Proxmox and the VMware. We'll see our compute resources. Here we see the plugins which have been installed on Orcharhino. We see the version and all the installed packages for our Orcharhino version. And here we also see the backend system status. Now let's have a look at our host which has been deployed. So we go back to all hosts. So the name of our host has been Webinar Ubu. So we see it has been deployed, the status is okay. The build is installed, configuration is active, so this means configuration has been running and has been changing. So the last remote execution, which has been the Ansible role, which has been run, was successful. All errata are applied. We see our sort master, we see our sort environment, system purpose has not been specified. We see the subscription is fully entitled. We see all the information of our host, IP address, MAC address, Puppet environment, architecture, operating system, and much more. We see that the status is okay. The status gives a summary of all the states here. So I will show you a prepared host where I want to run a few patches afterwards. Therefore, we prepared it, but it's not that current. So we see here, this host has the status of error. This comes because for this host, we have security errata installable. So I want to demonstrate how easy it is to install an errata. At audits, we can generally see, let's do the rest, we can see what has been done on this host. Here we see the facts. Here we see the reports, which has been run. So we see this host has been running for a few hours already. We see here we get our regular Puppet reports. Here we have our Ansible report. So now we can run as well a salt run. So for example, we go here, we pick this one, we choose run salt. Now we see that this thing is running. If we click here, we can see in real time what's happening on the host. So this is taking a while, so let's run it run in the background. We will have a look on it a bit later. So also we can see here the sort ENC and so on. Now here we can see the templates which are assigned. We can also see how the template looked like before rendering. When it's deployed, we can render it for debugging, for example, to see what commands have been run to deploy the host. Here we can see the properties we get from for our VM. Here we see the NICs. Here we have our snapshot plugin. So for example, if you want to create a snapshot, we just name it test snapshot. We can choose if you want to include RAM or not. We just click on create. We wait a few seconds. The snapshot has been created. We look back here. Now we see here's our snapshot. We can now just click on rollback if we want to roll back. Or if we no longer need it, we can click on delete and ask if you are sure. Click on OK. And the snapshot is gone. Now I want to show you how the package management and patch management works. So we can click now here on content. So now we have an overview of everything. We can see the subscriptions to our node. So we see it fully entitled. We see the products which are subscribed. Now we can have a look at the DAP packages. If we now click on installed, we see a list of all the installed packages on our host. So let's have a look. For example, we would like to have HTOP. Let's see if HTOP is available. We click now on HTOP, we click on search, and it's not there. So let's install it. So we go to apt actions. We choose packet install. We can also update or remove. So we choose HTOP. We click on perform. And then the installation job is sent to the host via remote execution. This means via an SSH connection. We can now click here and see in real time what's happening on the host. So you see what's happening here. So you know the typical apt-get. So everything was successful. Now we go back. We see it's green. Everything is fine. Now we go back on our DAP package list. We look at installed. We look now if it's there. We look for HTOP. We look. We see it's there. So you see it's quite easy to administrate packages, to install them. If you no longer need them, we can just delete them. Now we want to fix our security issues. Now we have a look at the errata. So we click on errata. So we see these are the errata which are available for this node. We just pick them all. We click on apply selected. And again, the job will be sent to our node via remote execution. We now can click on the host itself. So we see what's happening. apt-get is running, things are being installed. The package profile will be updated. So everything is loaded back up. So now we have a look at the errata. You see there are no errata to display, so everything is fixed. And now if we go back to our main screen for our host, we see our host is back green. So everything is fixed. Now, If we want to schedule remote jobs, there are several things. So basically, you can just run your Ansible role again, and when you have changed something, you just click on Ansible roles. The thing is, of course, sometimes you want to roll out certain packages or certain patches on several nodes in parallel. So you can just do a bulk job, and you don't need to do it for every node separately. So we go back here on all our nodes. And now, for instance, we want to run Ansible on 2 of our nodes because they need to be updated. So we choose our 2 webinar nodes. So we go here to webinar Ubu 18 and webinar Ubu. We pick them both. We go to select action. Now we choose schedule remote job. Now we have many options. You have the same options for a single host. Now we do it for several ones. So you can just, for example, run Ansible commands. Or you can also run Ansible packages. We can just run Ansible playbook. So let's do that. Let's run the Ansible default. So all the attached Ansible roles to this nodes will be run. So we click on submit. So this role will be run now on both. Already started with Ubu 18, now also started on Ubu directly. So let's wait a few seconds, then we see what happens. On preview template, you can actually see what's going to be run. So you can see that's the playbook which is running at the moment. It just sets the message of the day, so it's quite a simple demonstration. And you see now on both nodes, the Ansible role ran successfully. Now we also want to see what are the further options we have for our node. So we go back to schedule remote job. So we can use Ansible as well to administrate the power management. So for example, we can restart or shut down a host from there. Of course, we can, we can trigger Puppet run with Ansible. We can install Ansible roles, for example, if you assign an SSH key to Orcharhino as well. You have your Ansible services. We can run ad hoc commands on your nodes. For example, we can just run uptime. So this command is now triggered via SSH connection on the host. We can now have a look on the host what's happening. So we see it was successful. We see the output of the command uptime. And here everything is a great success. So we can also install errata. With this job here, for example, we can choose to try to install it via SSH or also via Ansible runs. We can install packages directly from here, from content like I showed before, or from here, it's both. We can also manage the power directly via SSH without using Ansible. We can create job templates in here. We can trigger Puppet runs via SSH, and we can trigger sort runs like before. So if I click here on sort, it will happen the same thing as you saw before when running it from right here. So if you need to reconfigure your host, you can take your host like it has been. You can click on edit. Now you get the same setting like you got before when you deployed it, and from the host group, you can just adjust the host, change everything, and when you're done, you just click submit, and then the host will be updated. If you need to create a second host with exactly the same layout like the first one, you can just click on clone. Then you get a host which is completely identical to the first one, just gets a different IP, and you will have to assign a new name. And then you can just submit and create and deploy this host. So we got back to the main menu. So let's get back to the host we had in here. So in case you need to redeploy your host and you don't need your old content anymore, you can just rebuild it and create it as a new by clicking on build. You click on reboot now. If you now click on reboot and build, the host will be rebooted and a fresh installation of this host will be triggered. Then it comes back and is completely as new. So basically, I think I showed you most of all the features. So if there are still questions, feel free to ask, and I can show you anything you like to see. Otherwise, I would have arrived at the end of our demonstration. Thank you for joining, and